So here we are, and this is another Communiversity lecture series presentation. And so we have the brother, Dr. Jared Ball, who we appreciate, who has come to us all the way from Morgan State University's campus. And so for those who might not be familiar with Brother Ball or may not be familiar as much with his work, he's a professor of communication studies in the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University, and he's also the founder and curator of media platform imixwhatIlike.org, and it's also here on this slide as well. And he'll be speaking with the topic at hand today, the myth of Black buying power. The myth of Black buying power. So without further ado, without further delay, please give a warm Blacktastic welcome for Brother Dr. Jared Ball. Ashe, family, give it up.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I greatly appreciate the invitation to present on this topic, and for all of you to come out, for coming out and missing the Prince's wedding. I know you were struggling with that one. It was a tough choice, but no. But in all seriousness, first of all, I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate the effort of all those involved here. And before we even get started, I just want to, we gave it up for the ancestors, but just a quick other mention that, again, today is the 93rd birthday of Malcolm X. And I think that is a great context in which to have this discussion. I want to say from the outset, I don't have the solution. I just want to be very clear. The first thing that people usually say to me when they hear my argument on this is, well, but what's the solution? I'm saying I don't have one. I would also be cautious of anyone who stood before anybody and said that they singularly have the solution. I think that's always a warning flag should go off. But my real point is, I've only, in this instance, wanted to isolate and try to, in the parlance of Bob Brown, shotgun a particular myth. The solutions to all of our problems will only come from the kind of work exhibited in this space: collective, political, organized, clear work. That's the only vague hope we have. The details about what to do will come out of that understanding and work that is generated as organized political groups in
Siri not available.
Off the record. That was deep. What was that? Siri. Oh, NSA? Okay. Good. As long as we know they're listening. In fact, thanks to the FBI's surveillance of my father, I actually learned a lot about him that I would not have otherwise known. So I appreciate, thanks everybody. Thanks FBI. Anyway, that's another discussion. So I wanted to just be very clear about that. I don't have the solution. I just think that this particular issue is confusing efforts to get to any solution we might get to. Similarly, I also want to say from the outset, I am not saying, and do not mean to be interpreted as saying, that we should not try to support Black business, Black endeavor, Black entrepreneurialism. I'm not saying that is not a goal or shouldn't be a goal. I'm just simply going to argue that in and of itself will not get us anywhere. That in and of itself, that path is not one that leads to collective salvation. All right, so again, I don't have the solution. I'm just challenging this one particular myth, and I'm not saying don't support Black business. This is often the critiques I get when people think they've heard what I've said. So I just want to be clear about that, and we'll come back to that. Now, for me, this started a little over 10 years ago when, in fact, this is the 10th anniversary of the first effort of my own, and which I still think is the first effort, period. And I don't mean to sound arrogant here. I just think that this has been a particular myth that has gone unattended for so long that I just happen to be the first, really the only person to ever really challenge this particular idea and concept. And over 10 years, in writing and researching it, it has led to more hostility from me than anything else I've ever been involved in. And to me, it's not even anywhere near the closest, what I would consider radical or threatening or provocative argument or position I take politically. It just happens to be one that is extremely, for a lot of reasons that I think we'll come to, difficult for people to accept or to rationalize, in part because it is such a heavily propagandized myth. And we're going to talk about it in terms of propaganda and the process and how propaganda works. And because of that, it is successful. The myth functions as propaganda because primarily what ends up happening is that we are convinced that we're poor because we're just not spending our money properly. And then we don't challenge or redirect our efforts to collective work that addresses the political system. And one of the things that we fail to understand is that wealth is created by state policy, by public policy, by politics. So the interest rates that create the value of your money, the who can buy land, who can invest, all of these are political decisions that if we're not organized, we'll never, this is not something you can individually do as a business thing. It has to be a collective model. So one thing that comes up all the time, and somebody, is, well, why don't we do like the Asians do and open up restaurants? You got to look at the history of Chinese restaurants. Chinese restaurants are Chinese and U.S. collective state projects. These are not individual entrepreneurs working out of their desperate situation and doing something we're too stupid and lazy to do. The Chinese and U.S. set policy. Going back, they even said the only way, going back to the early or the mid-1900s, they said the only way Chinese people can come into this country is if they're coming as business people. So the Chinese government set up a situation where they gave loans to their own people to set up businesses in the United States, which were matched by other financial benefits from this country to set up all these Chinese restaurants. Public policy, politics. It is not about black people being too lazy and stupid to open up a restaurant.